Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 232, which can be found at WMDpodcast.com/232. You can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction, and you can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and X. David, feels like we're winning. I know we've been saying this for a couple weeks now.
Are you winning, son?
We've been having some white pill moments lately. How do you feel? Are you handling the winning well?
I'm not good. I'm not good with positivity, Dane. You know that about me. I live in the shadows. I wait for the other shoe to drop. I never believe in anything that if it looks too good enough to be true, it probably is. And if she's the perfect 10 out of 10, she's got a dick between her legs, which for one side is not a big deal. For one side, people think that you can do that. So, anyway.
I mean, you can do it.
I mean,
it's heavily frowned upon in polite society.
What's that old phrase? Anything's a dildo if you're brave enough. Anyway, moving on. I
feel like you paraphrased that and put your own twist on it somewhere.
No, I'm pretty sure people said that. I think that was in.
Are people named just you?
I think it was in Hamlet somewhere. It was in the back dialogue. It's somewhere in there.
Gotcha.
Brave enough, dildo. Anyway. Yeah, I don't. It's weird when things start going my way. I'm not used to that, and I've got a little tentativeness. I'm cautiously optimistic. I hope it's going to be all right. But a lot's changing, just like your body is going through some fiery changes in about 6th grade. It feels like America's reached 6th grade and we're just like, holy hell, what is it? Oh, can I take out your daughter? Anyway, yeah, it feels a little bit like that. We're definitely going through a transition. I keep using phraseology from the left. I just shouldn't do that. We have been marinating in their their cultural stew for several years now. I just feel more comfortable in the cage. I'm just gonna get back in there. I'll lock the door. Don't worry about me, guys. I'll fill up my own water bottle. But it feels like a breath of fresh air, which is why I don't trust it. Put it that way. That's what I've breathed in some fresh air for once, and I'm like, this too good? Nope. It's not going to stick around for long. There was a fart in there somewhere. I know it.
Well, fair enough. But listen, let me be the first, hopefully not the last to tell you that nobody is going to fault you for feeling like that. When you are of our particular, worldview, political persuasion, however you want to call it, we don't win a lot. Because we live in an insane world.
We're there. Every season we show up. We ain't going to get shit, but,
when you live in an insane world, even a modicum of sanity really makes you the outlier. But we have some good news this week. But before we get to the good news, we wouldn't be, dutiful, gold-blooded libertarians if we didn't also give you some bad news because, we just got to make sure you stay on your toes, right?
It just feels more comfortable to be beat by my husband. That's just what it feels like.
It's not all rose petals.
I'm familiar with.
So, all right. So this week we got a kind of a double topic episode, but I think they kind of dovetail with each other. The first segment, we're going to be talking about a constitutional crisis. That's the new buzzword. It's no longer white supremacy or fascism. Well, I mean, those things are always still kind of there, according to the mouth breathers on the left.
Humans.
But now the new buzzword that has gone out in the memos to all of the mainstream media sources is a constitutional crisis. And are we in one? They're super concerned these days. So David and I are going to discuss the...
Shouldn't they know? They're the one breaking the fucking topic. Shouldn't they? Why are you asking me the question? I don't know fucking anything about this. You're the one bringing it up. You better know.
It's more rhetorical. Of course, in their view, it is a constitutional crisis. But as you'll find out from David and I discussing it, they're never focused on the correct things.
It's all about perspective.
But after we wrap that up, we're going to get into the happy part of the show, which is,
not bickering and arguing about who killed who.
Taking our victory lap. Right? Not David and I personally, not a sort of sneering down our nose, David and I only, and we're the only two people in the world told you so, but just the broader liberty movement, right? If you don't like labels, you don't want to call yourself a libertarian or anything like that.
I want to say Christian, but you're spiritual.
if you are generally of the bent that, tends in the direction of leave people alone, right? Don't hit people and don't take their stuff, right? If that generally applies to your worldview, you deserve a pat on the back too. You deserve a round of applause and a victory lap because we, the pro-liberty people, are winning the culture war. After decades and decades of ceding ground, it seems like we're winning the culture war with the normies.
Easy, George
Not
W.
to jinx it, okay?
Easy, George W. It
Grab
feels
your
like you're flying in on that F4, you're landing on that carrier, you got the big banner behind you. It's only been 2 weeks, Dane.
Yeah, I know.
Easy.
We'll discuss it as we progress.
What did I just say not 3 minutes ago?
So, first segment, constitutional crisis. David, are we in one? Go.
Yes, obviously. We are always in a constitutional crisis because you can't wake up and just go, God damn it, I'm American and the sun's shining. Let's have a good day, y'all. It's always got to be panic, fear, enjoy your coffee. Panic, fear, enjoy your coffee. By the way, this is a nice little thing that happened to me. Panic, fear. Like, you're losing your country. Like, your neighbor can't be trusted. Have a nice day. Repeat that to all the people that you like. They'll agree with you 24/7. Like, that's like, you can't leave the house without getting your talking points. So, of course, it only took 2 weeks for there to be a constitutional crisis. I'd argue that, yes, I believe we've been in a constitutional crisis, but just not for how long they think it has been. I feel like it's been going on for decades, Dane. But what do I know? I'm just a dumb fucking average American, as Elizabeth Warren would call me.
Right. Hence why I said, at the top of the show that nobody's going to fault you for in this sort of environment of, I'm not going to say winning completely, it's never a total victory, but in this environment of more winning than we've ever been used to in our entire lives, nobody's going to fault you for having that apprehension of like, okay, when's the other shoe going to drop? When's something bad going to happen? Because yes, you're right. If somebody was concerned about the sanctity of the Constitution, you should have been concerned way before January 20th, 2025, or November, whatever it was, 5th or 6th, whenever the election was in 24. There's been many, many constitutional crises, but never for the things that the people that are so concerned now are concerned about. And we're going to get to that here in a second. But just, kind of the first point that I wanted to make is all of the people, right, that are running around like chickens with their heads cut off, screaming about constitutional crises, are the absolute dead last people that I would ever listen to about what constitutes a constitutional crisis.
No. They know, Dane, because they're causing it. They know what it is because they're the ones doing it. They're like, this is a crisis, huh? Oh, I'd hate it. What's that Bill Hader one where they're like, yeah, isn't that awful? He's like, oh, yeah, that's awful. They're like, it seems like you're enjoying this. He's like, oh, no, I'm not enjoying this at all. Like, it feels like that's them. They're like, oh, I'm really fucking this up. Oh, I'm fucking it up so good. I'm going to get paid a lot of money to do this too, by the way. Toodles. Oh, we're in a crisis, by the way. Just tell them we're in a crisis.
Yeah. No, it wasn't a constitutional crisis when, the government has been adding agency upon agency not authorized by the Constitution, those agencies have been passing regulation after regulation.
Not even government agencies, non-government agencies that are definitely government agencies, just not government agencies, but they are. It's like, well, yes, but actually, no. It's like
NGOs that are getting your tax dollars, the World Health Organization that's issuing policy and edicts that's affecting you despite having no authority over you as an American citizen whatsoever. That's just one example. There's many other examples. There's every single war since World War II that's been, leapt into without congressional approval. There's the lies that have gotten us into some of those wars. Weapons of mass destruction come to mind on that. There's things that come out of those conflicts, like the Patriot Act, which basically used the Fourth Amendment as fire kindling. The list goes on and on.
It goes all the way down to censorship on Facebook and Twitter. You can't say a man is a man and a woman is a woman, despite the fact that
there's decades and decades of conspiracy theories that are now conspiracy facts. There's COINTELPRO. There's the USS Liberty. There is like I said, weapons of mass destruction. There is, the list goes on and on. There is, TARP, when the banks cause, massive financial collapse and the government just says, yep, we're just going to write you guys a blank check. There is, and lest we not forget, COVID, where they shut an entire country down and told you whether you were essential or not and forced you to get a medical procedure against your will in some cases. None of these things.
I'd like to say, can I just
none of these things were constitutional crises, but now that some of those not formerly, always have been unconstitutional federal agencies are being shut down, now it's a crisis. Yep. Now our hair is on fire.
And these people respect you so much that when everyone pointed and said, hey, did this COVID virus come from that? No, you can't say that, and you're racist if you do. Well, that just says the Wuhan Institute for COVID Lab Research. You fuck, I knew you were going to do it. I can't believe you're racist. They don't even think, yeah, it came from there. No, it didn't. A pangolin fucked a bat in a wet market. Are you sure? Because I'd put money on that. No. And then now it's just yeah, it came from there. Whatever. Yeah. Oh, we gave it millions of dollars too, by the way. Well, we didn't. It's your money.
Our chief, longest tenured government agent started working on it or funded it in 2014. And then the funding or the research ended in 2019, right before patient zero got sick. Oh, and by the way, the outgoing president gave him a preemptive pardon dating back to, you guessed it, January 1st, 2014, all the way up through today. So again, nothing to see here, folks. No constitutional crisis there whatsoever. It's only when Elon and DOGE go into USAID or the IRS or the Department of Education and say, hey, American people, you've been funding X, Y, or Z dumbass thing that has nothing to do with your interests to the tune of billions of dollars every single year. And, here's some transparency. Here's where some of your money's going. Now that's a constitutional crisis.
And now exactly. And now all the right people are fucking screaming in the streets. It's oh boy.
But David, listen, I got to give them credit. The lefties, they do this a lot, right? Where they scream about something, right?
Name a fucking topic. They're screaming about something. You just never saw it coming, right?
And their proposed solution, or what they get outraged over, sometimes those two things are, coterminous, is the exact opposite of what needs to be done. I'll give you one example before I get to the present example.
Please.
The kind of Bernie AOC wing of the Democratic Party, the socialist wing will tell you, it's really, really bad that we have, these big, powerful companies that make all this money, and that's why we need government to step in and stop it and, give money and power back to the people and blah, blah, blah. And their solution to this, it is a legitimate problem that they have identified, but their solution is give more power and money to the state, right? The very thing that picked the winners and losers in the market, that made these super ultra powerful, corporate entities that are immune from liability, say, for example, in the context of Pfizer. I was going to get more general than Pfizer, but just healthcare or whatever. And they'll say, okay, the government created this problem, and so our solution is to make the government bigger and more powerful and more well-funded.
The government,
because that's going to fix.
So we need more government to make it work.
Right. So again, definitely agree that this is a problem. Your solution is completely the opposite of what's needed. In the same way with the constitutional crisis, they are right. There is a constitutional crisis going on right here today, right now.
You believe, you agree with liberals?
Yes.
This is so weird.
But it's not what they're claiming it is. Shocker. I know.
There's a twist.
The real constitutional crisis, and again, it's just hilarious because the people that shout about constitutional crisis that haven't spent 5 seconds even reading anything further into the Constitution than we the people, right? they're the ones that are going to tell you their very deep-seated knowledge about what the Constitution authorizes and what it doesn't, and they'll tell you about checks and balances and all this kind of stuff. And they are cheering these federal judges in this past week that have way overstepped their bounds from the judicial branch of the federal government in terms of reaching into the internal workings of the executive branch. So not the executive branch stepping on the legislature's toes, or not the executive branch stepping on the judicial branch's toes, but the internal inner workings of the executive branch within the executive branch. Some federal judges, blinded by their own bias and, sort of megalomaniacally, too proud or they think too highly of their power or authority as judges, have started a constitutional crisis in terms of stopping the chief executive from setting policies and initiatives for the executive branch.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him. It's I'd recommend, to speak lawyerese to these fucking idiots, I'd recommend you go look at Lemon versus CNN and see when Lemon was on CNN doing CNN. I have a point here, Dane. Don't worry about it. When Lennon was on Lemon, not Lennon, Jesus. When Lemon was on CNN, it worked because he did CNN shtick on CNN. He was playing to the crowd. Crowd loved it. Unfortunately, he did CNN too hard one time, and even CNN said, "Hey, you got to get the fuck out." And so he did. And then he decided that he was going to go to the streets and do CNN with Elon Musk, the only guy that gave him a platform and gave him an opportunity to launch on that platform. And that didn't go well. And then he started to take to the streets and ask a bunch of black men about how they voted, and was shocked that he was not as in tune with his regular black man as he thought that he was. Shocking, I know. My point being is that it's not working well for him without CNN. You need the apparatchik for it to work. It's kind of like weaponizing the DOJ. It only works if the power resides with your side. Because if you start pulling this shit with a Republican in charge, when they're going to actually hold your feet to the actual law and not just look the other way when you may or may not have, what is it called? Recuse yourself, Dane? You should recuse yourself of a situation because you have prior knowledge to it, or an actual, what's the other thing? Like they stand to gain from, or any, is it just any involvement?
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Love it. So this is a cute move, but I have a feeling that you're showing off in front of your friends that are still on the boat, and there's a shark in the water now. So I don't know. Better start swimming though, because if this doesn't work out, judges go to jail all the time, Dane. I don't know if you know that or not.
Yeah. Or, to a lesser extent, like they tried to do to Trump, 3 times, they can get impeached. Yep. And I would venture to say that these two judges we're getting ready to discuss have, looked the other way on conflicts of interest or their own personal biases to such a degree that they are worthy of impeachment, or for the Supreme Court, the Supremes, to reach down and give them a, judicial slap across the face and say, you're done. You're either completely off the bench entirely, or you are not allowed to sit on these cases anymore. You're going to be disqualified from hearing these types of cases. So our first bad actor of this week is Judge John Bates, who, look him up. He looks a lot like you would imagine Norman looks. But Judge John Bates, he overruled the Trump administration when Trump said, all right, all you executive agencies that are under my aegis, right, as the chief executive of the executive branch, I am setting a policy now that I don't want any of your gender ideology, sex change stuff plastered all over federal agency websites and paperwork and all that kind of stuff. And Bates issued his order that reversed that, commanding agencies like the CDC and the FDA to restore the pages that Trump and his policies had specifically commanded be taken down. Like I said, website information on those government agencies' pages pertaining to gender ideology and sex change. Well, all right, I hear you. You might say, well, he just has a different view of things, and that's his view, and so be it. But the problem is, a major problem is, and you'll see a recurring theme of this, not only in today's episode, but throughout all of the people screeching about the slush fund that is USAID and other government agencies being turned off, is Judge Bates's wife, Carol Reese, is the founder of an organization called Hope for Children in Ethiopia, who has been a very long-term recipient of USAID funds. So, yes, this judge, who, again, from a constitutional crisis perspective, this cannot be overstated, right? The purpose of checks and balances is to make sure that the three branches of the federal government are co-equal in terms of their power, meaning they can't overstep their authority and sort of interfere into the sphere of the other two branches. Because when they do, then they're supposed to, you guessed it, check and balance each other, right? One classic example of this is how laws are passed. The legislature writes the law or writes the bills first. Then they pass the law. Once it makes it through both chambers, the House and the Senate, then it goes to the president's desk to either sign, and that's when it becomes law, or he can veto it. That is a check on the legislative power. So if he says, listen, I think this law is unconstitutional for X, Y, or Z, he issues his veto and the bill goes back to Congress. But then Congress can check that check and say, all right, we hear your objections, executive, but we still think that this should be a law, and they can pass it again by a supermajority over his veto, and that becomes a law. So this is just like kind of a Schoolhouse Rock quintessential example of this is how the branches check and balance each other. And I tell you that to explain that when branches are acting within their own sphere of influence, right? So when Trump, as the chief executive, sets policies, directives, whatever the case may be, hires and fires personnel that are exclusively and solely within the executive branch, meaning he's not venturing out to step on the toes of the legislature or the judicial. He's within his own branch. He is at the peak of his authority as the chief executive. So somebody else from another branch, i.e. a rogue judge, can't just interject himself into the executive branch and say, I disagree with your policies, on a personal matter, right? Maybe he thinks transgender surgeries for all ages is just the coolest thing since sliced bread, or for matters of conflicts of interest and bias is, political retaliation because his wife's slush fund is getting cut off with the shutting down of USAID. Either one of those motivating factors aren't really the point. The point is that a judicial branch officer, agent, whatever you want to call it, is interjecting himself into a core executive function where he has no constitutional authority to be. So if you're looking for a constitutional crisis, there is one right there. And again, sadly, he's not the only one. But again, none of this analysis you'll hear on CNN or whatever, because the constitutional crisis is just the fact that Elon is telling you how all your money's being wasted.
That is a conundrum, Dane. I'd hate to think that, if somebody had a problem with certain beliefs in this country, land of the free and the home of the brave, I would expect someone else to respect those beliefs, especially if those beliefs have been held since the dawn of time. And your beliefs had only been held for the last 2 years. I would expect there to be some understanding. But I do tend to recall, if you didn't believe with, or if you didn't go hook, line, and sinker with, as I mentioned before, the LGBTQ, when they were in power, they were less understanding of that. I believe people got removed. I believe people in other countries got arrested. I think England had some hate speech laws. It's funny. all these laws go into place to protect their side, but then, it comes time for them to take their own medicine, and they don't want to quite do it so quickly. It's just interesting. It's a neat little human experiment that we're having here. But you said there was another one, Dane. Tell me it's not another judge.
It is another judge. And as egregious as Judge John Bates's example is, Paul Ingermeyer's is even worse.
Oh boy.
Because whereas Judge Bates was intervening into the executive branch and only the executive branch with his order, Ingermeyer's ruling affected the agreement between two branches that a certain appointee was fit for his position. And by this, I mean, again, here's another classic schoolhouse rock example of a check and balance is the president nominates cabinet position officials to sit in the executive branch with him and, carry out his policy and directives and yada, yada, yada. But before he actually gets that position, as you may recall if you've been paying attention to the RFK and Tulsi Gabbard confirmations this week, which, brief aside, woohoo, congratulations, woohoo, happy both of those passed, is before they actually get their cabinet appointees, they have to go through what's called under the Constitution the advice and consent of the Senate, which just means the Senate reviews whoever the president has nominated, and if they agree that this person is fit to serve as whatever secretary cabinet position they've been nominated for, then the Senate approves it, and now they're the whatever position the president appointed them for. So, Scott Bessent, who was appointed by Trump to be the Treasury Secretary, went through the whole rigmarole with Senate confirmations, and he was confirmed by the Senate. So here we have the executive branch doing his function under the Constitution of nominating somebody, and then him going over to the legislature so they can do their check and balance function and say, yep, we vetted him. He's good to go. He's the new Treasury Secretary. He gets appointed, and then Judge Engelmeyer forbade all political appointees, including Treasury Secretary Bessent, from accessing Department of Treasury data. Let me just pause that for a second. The person, so other than the president, right, who is the chief executive, the person who has the most power, authority, control, right to access all of the data within an individual department is the secretary appointee. So for Department of Defense, it's Hegseth. For, Director of National Intelligence, right, it's Tulsi. For HHS, it's RFK. For the Treasury, it's Scott Bessent. So Scott Bessent is supposed to be able to look at anything he wants to within the Treasury, including, is money going out the door that shouldn't be? Is the money that's being spent, does it align with the president's directives? And again, just a step back, this is democracy, people. You elect the president because you vote for him based on his policy and what he promised you he was going to do if he got elected. So him carrying out his functions is democracy working. If you don't agree with that, fine. I don't know, get more people to vote for your guy next time. But the point of democracy is when you elect the president to do whatever his platform is and he does it, you don't just get to throw a wrench in the whole thing and say, I'm not going to allow that to happen. And that's exactly what Engelmeyer did, is he forbade the Secretary of the Treasury from accessing Department of Treasury data to help DOGE facilitate and carry out its function of auditing where's the money coming in, where's it going, blah, 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 blah. That's bad enough as it is. The judge issued his order after the opposing party's lawyers submitted a rather lengthy brief. The judge issued his order the same day, and he did it ex parte, which means he did it without even contacting or getting any input from the Trump team's lawyers.
That doesn't
the ones
sound
that would say
legal.
the ones that would say the Secretary of Treasury
shady.
should get to see Treasury Department data. So again, constitutional crisis out the freaking wazoo. Judges are not allowed to do this. But that's exactly what Engelmeyer did this past week, and it doesn't get more crisis-y than that.
Come on, Dane. Don't be a stick in the mud. There's got to be some kind of benefit for him not letting the director in there. Like, they're probably setting up a party. Yeah, that's what it was. The party just wasn't set up yet. He's like,
They
no,
want to
you can't
throw
go
a
in there.
welcome party?
I'm so intent on this being the best welcome party ever that I'm not going to let you in the building, and none of the other people that are supposed to be with you either. I'm not letting anybody in. It's going to be a huge surprise. We had this guy with like on stilts and lights, and he shoots like this little mist machine. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's going to be crazy. But
Yeah.
maybe he just needed another week, Dane. Let's calm down. Before we jump the shark, before we start sinking our teeth into things that we don't know what the true initiative or the true motives behind it are, let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. He's probably throwing the most epic fucking welcome party the Treasury ever has, which I don't think would be too hard to do. Anyway.
Well, it wasn't a party, but he definitely got something out of this, at least in terms of for his own personal benefit.
In Washington? Getting paid off to do something? No, fuck off.
So much like John Bates, Engelmeyer, his wife, Emily Mandelstam, I may be pronouncing that wrong. Mandelstam.
So Mandelstam. So the previous wife was getting paid.
The previous wife had an agency that was getting funded by USAID.
And then this one has an agency that's getting paid as well, or is just going to her. And then being Nancy Pelosi's husband, you get just really crazy stock market luck, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, it's, I don't even want to be a politician. Let me be a politician's husband. Shit. Got any hot lady politicians that are available and interested in married men? Sorry. Go ahead, Dane. I'll stop cutting you off anymore. We fucked up, Dane. That's where we could have been kept men. We could, all this podcast nonsense. I don't mind cooking, cleaning, and doing all that shit. Oh, I'll be a stay-at-home man.
Getting some hot stock tips. So Emily Mandelstam, she worked for an open borders NGO called the New York Association for New Americans, and those new Americans are illegal immigrants, by the way. She
otherwise known as criminals.
She gets funding from USAID, which, by the way, one of the core functions of why Engelmeyer blocked Scott Bessent from accessing Treasury data is because he didn't think that it was justified for the Treasury Secretary to find out how much money is flowing from Treasury through USAID to groups like, the organization that his wife worked for.
Let's not ask uncomfortable questions, Dane.
Again,
like this is
listen,
so bad.
I'm telling you, at the state court level, for like a run-of-the-mill negligence claim, judges recuse themselves all the time for even perceived, even the hint or whiff that there might be some sort of improper relationship with one side versus another, or some sort of material, tangible benefit to the judge that's not disclosed. That's what is supposed to happen. That is what's supposed to happen if you want to give the general public any sort of confidence in the integrity of the legal system. But yet you have sitting federal judges telling their co-equal branch, colleagues that they can't do their own job that the American people elected them to do because
democracy,
money to their wife's organizations, or they just don't like Orange Man. That's a constitutional crisis. That's what the hair should be on fire about.
That's corruption.
Yes.
And you got to know the difference, kids. It's important to know. Maybe they should have added that shit into the fucking Schoolhouse Rock. Instead of the bill on Capitol Hill, they should have been like, hey, there's a politician. And he's sitting there going, yes, yes. Check his books. He's probably fucking doing some serious shit. Or if you ask him a question like, hey, isn't your salary like 200 grand? Oh, yeah. And your portfolio is like 45 million. Oh, I've seen some exploding opportunities. Yeah. How'd you do that? I can't answer that.
Can you math that out for us?
Anyone want lunch? Yeah. Imagine you did that. Just, hey, honey, where you been? Don't worry about it. You got glitter on you. Yeah, pixie dust. I was walking home through an enchanted forest. You smell like perfume, and I don't wear that kind. Yeah, it's rain to perfume. It's acid rain, but it's a perfume rain. It only happened in the sector that I was in too. Don't ask any more questions. Dinner ready? Like, Jesus Christ, guys. Like,
yeah.
And then, by the way, if you're still rooting for these guys, if you still think you're in a constitutional crisis, if you still think Elon's doing the fucked up thing, if you still think getting rid of all these things you're wrong. Can we just say that? Can we finally just say that? Like, hey.
Oh, yeah. Let's say it.
Like,
say it again.
You're fucking wrong. Like, I hate to tell you, but if you're rooting, you're literally going to the horror movie and rooting for the bad guy. You're rooting for the monster to kill all the teenagers, which in a lot of the horror movies, I'm on your side too. I think those dumbasses should die if they find themselves in that situation. But that's not the point. The point is that you're literally rooting for the baddies. Like, you're saying, it's wrong that Elon's doing this. It's like, but he found all the corruption and he literally just scratched the surface and all these fucking feathers started flying. And I don't care about that. Is like, okay, so you want to protect the people that were taking your money, not telling you what they were doing with it, and putting it in their friends and their own pockets. You want to protect them? Okay, then I've never seen a more disgusting version of Stockholm Syndrome than I've ever seen ever. But you go ahead and keep holding on to that. It'll work out for you in the long run. I'm sure evolution's not a thing. Things that don't adapt, they always survive, right? Everyone knows about those roaming gangs of woolly mammoths in the Great Plains, right? Everyone knows those saber-toothed tigers. You can't go to the Maldives in the summer, my friend. All those saber-toothed tigers, they'll maul you. Jesus Christ, people. Like, anyway, that's David's little side note. On to you, Dane. Do we have anything cheerier than just
I had no idea how we wound up at woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers in the Maldives, but I'll take it.
You have to adapt with the new world, or else you will go extinct.
There's
Jesus
the
Christ, let me hit you over the head with it. Sorry. Maybe I go on tangents. Maybe I should be more direct. I'm like, these guys are smart enough to get it, but maybe I'm just like talking crazy and Dane's just like, anyway, so like on to the next subject. Maybe I should be more direct.
We have a nice little back and forth here because I explain things too many times to the point that I say the same thing 4 times just to making sure people didn't get it the 3rd time. And you're like,
I'm
here's A, and then there's Z, and then you're supposed to infer all the ones.
I'm sure they followed me. I'm sure they followed me on my rant. No problem.
Listen, there's something in the WMD podcast for everybody. So
There's something here. I don't know what it is, but there's something.
Now that we got the less fortunate news out of the way, just make sure you keep an eye on those constitutional crises and, the real ones that are actually happening.
See something, say something, guys.
Now we're going to get to the happy part of the show, the pat ourselves on the back, the victory lap, because, like I said, it's not coming from a place of arrogance. It's not coming from a sneering down our nose. It's not coming from,
trust us.
Oh, we told you so. It's coming from when you are out in the, kind of political and cultural wilderness for decades, for literally before David and I were even born, when you get some wins, you got to celebrate the wins. You can't just let yourself be beat down all the time about, we're always losing the culture war and stuff like that, such that when you do get a win, you're always just like, oh, something bad's going to happen. You gotta, do you feel for like your own mental sanity, you got to take the wins when they come.
The thing is, I feel a little bit like Moses is like, not that I'm Jewish or lived back in the ancient times or that I led a group of people into a desert. But it feels like we've been the madman shouting in the wind for so long, like, these goddamn people. And then this would fix it. And then all of a sudden, all the things that we started to, like, when he put the staff down and the seas started to part, he's like, oh shit, it's working. Like, there had to be that moment for him, right? Like, oh, thank God it's parting. I thought I was going to have to be like, all right, well, God just talked to me and he wants us to walk around. He just wants us to walk around. So we'll go to the right. We'll all go to the right. Come on, follow me. So anyway, it just feels like it's all working. But now, like we discussed off air, I'm getting like hesitant. I'm like, God, I hope we were right about all of those things because we're gonna have egg on our face if we're here in 4 years. Like, well, our bad. Anyway, you want to make another country? Let's try another country. Like,
well, before we before we get to this, the scary theoretical part of it, let's just take a second to breathe and take in where we are at today. And where we are at today is winning the culture war. The first example I'll give you of this is Theo Von. Right? It's not that Theo, I mean, he's big. Don't get me wrong. He's got a big platform. He's got a big audience. You know, he's pretty universally loved. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody say like, I hate Theo. Like people might say he's not funny or whatever. It's just not their cup of tea.
Is it possible to dislike him?
Yeah.
Like he's just such a nice, genuine person. How the fuck could you not like Theo?
Exactly. So he's sort of the, not, you know, maybe litmus test is even too strong, but basically what I'm saying is like, he's a big, popular person who most normies, right, that maybe don't pay attention to politics whatsoever, they like and listen to Theo Von and think that he's got important, insightful things to say. And I happen to be one of those people that agrees with that. But Theo Von has this tweet, which we just put up here for the audio-only listeners. He said, his tweet says, quote, "Let Ron Paul audit the Fed." And he was retweeting a tweet from the Libertarian Party, which said, "If Ron Paul audits the Fed, it will be a nation-changing event." You know, that sort of stamp of imprimatur from somebody like Theo Von, that sort of like approval from somebody who is a shaper of cultural opinion, right? You know, Theo does have that kind of a name. You know, maybe not to the level of a Joe Rogan or whatever, but he's, like I said,
big.
He's big.
Big. Yeah.
He's big, but he's not big in a way that even Joe Rogan is big, in the sense that Joe has dipped his toe many, many times with his guests over the years into the realm of politics. And Theo has started to do this lately. But I think when people think of Joe, they think of him as so eclectic and such a wide-ranging base of topics. And he's been doing it for so long that people know where Joe kind of stands on not just comedy or not just UFC, but also in politics and that kind of stuff. Theo has been much more, not pigeonholed, but much more in that realm of, okay, he's a comedy guy. Like they're both comedians, but it's like always, you know, Theo's kind of thought of just like, oh, he's a comedy guy. Yeah, he's interviewed Trump and yeah, he's interviewed, you know, Jordan Peterson here and there. But for the most part, Theo's a comedy guy. So for somebody like him with his platform, his position or whatever, to kind of step outside of that, you know, kind of pigeonholing that he's had and been like, yes, this is a great idea that not only should the Fed be audited, but it should be done, you know, should be headed up by somebody of the caliber of a Ron Paul. Again, unless you were in the Liberty movement all the way back in 2008, or some people here much longer than that, that is massive, right? Ron Paul walked so that Trump could run. Ron Paul was talking about bringing the troops home, auditing the Fed, ending the Department of Education, you know, majorly trimming the fat of the United States federal government in 2008. And he was a kook. He was a whack job. He was ridden out of town on a pole by his own party. Like nobody, like, again, for us in the movement, he is the guy. He changed a lot of people's perspective on life forever with sort of his viewpoints and his strong rationale, Austrian economics, all those things, right? And to go from not only in our own lifetimes, but within less than 20 years, to that sort of political wilderness, that sort of outcasting that he experienced and we experienced by proxy, to now a Theo Von, a Joe Rogan, a Dave Smith, Tucker Carlson, you know, a lot of mainstream major people are now saying, if not explicitly, Ron Paul was right, saying like, yeah, we're now on board with the things that he was saying that long ago. That's huge. That's a major win. That's a major cultural shift, and we should take pride in that.
I just think it's funny. And it was kind of weird. And I know it's been spoken about on a couple of podcasts, but so I won't belabor the point. But it is weird. In a time in the election that meant so much, it took a bunch of comedians to come on, you know, have podcasts, have gigantic podcasts. Joe Rogan, comedian. You know, Theo Von Theo Von was at the fucking inauguration. So it's interesting. I think Joe Rogan might have been invited too. And there was a couple other ones on there. So it's very, very interesting that in a time where even it had gotten kind of draconian, like not to make it too, fanciful or anything like that, but like back in the feudal times, the only person that could tell the truth in a kingdom was the court jester. Well, why was that? Because the king would cut your fucking head off if he said something you don't like, but as long as the jester could put it in a joke, make it entertaining, booyah. He could say the things that no one else could say. Well, look at what we had there. They were trying to get rid of words, cancel people, cancel culture, cancel everything that didn't, if you said one thing that one person didn't like, God damn it, you needed to be crucified. And it took a bunch of comedians standing up and saying a bunch of shit when comedy was dangerous again. And it's ironic that the court jesters of our country actually gave a platform to get rid of the, would you call it a monarchy almost? It was definitely, it's tyrannical, that's for sure. All I know is, go ahead.
For all the left's wailing and gnashing of teeth about an oligarchy now that, Trump and Elon and DOGE and blah, blah, blah.
What are the Kennedys? What are the
Clintons? Yeah, exactly.
Like, come on.
What are you talking about? Is what we've been living under.
The Obamas. What are you talking about? Like, that's the beautiful part of the left is they're always so great at pointing one finger to the other side, not realizing they got three pointed back at them.
Yeah.
You guys are the gift that keeps on giving, but not in a good way. And that's my whole analogy. Is like, if you do not adapt to the new world and drop some of these policies that everyone doesn't like, there's more than enough room for the Libertarian Party to replace you. Dare I dream? But like, yeah, we always hear it's a two-party system, but no one ever said that it had to be the same two parties. You keep fucking around, you'll find out. You'll find out real quick, but go ahead.
And, I guess kind of the last point on this before we wrap up is I hear the objections already. I hear like, listen, guys, you found one tweet from one comedian that kind of shared your worldview. What's the big deal? Well, I'll do you one better, and I'll even step outside of our comfort zone to the extent you want to say that, comedians are sort of echoing libertarian or liberty-oriented talking points. And I'll just give you, I'll raise you some CBS polls. So the first one that I have for you here is a CBS News poll. So again, not Fox News, right? Not Breitbart, CBS, a mainstream media establishment, if there ever was one, polling people. Again, not even dividing by, Democrats or Republicans or, moderates in the middle, everybody, just a general poll. And the question is, Trump and his campaign promises, is he doing them? So basically, is he acting the way he told you he was going to act when he ran? And to the tune of 70% of people say, yeah, he's doing what he said he was going to do. Now, again, that could be somebody answering yes to the 70% on that. Could be a super pro MAGA person that's really happy with everything Trump is doing by saying, this is what I voted for. And that could be a super hair on fire Democrat who's like, I was afraid he was going to do exactly this, but yes, he's doing exactly this. The point is that for once in all of our political lives, a politician is doing what they said they were going to do by and large, right? Obviously, we're disappointed about the whole U.S. is going to move in and, build a hotel strip in Gaza or make Canada the 51st state. There's always stuff to object about. But by and large, he is doing what he campaigned and what he said he was going to do. And again, love it or hate it, that just is what it is. But the second data point that I want to give you is, again, another question in that same CBS News poll is Trump's overall job rating. 53% approve, 47 disapprove. Now, you might be saying, well, that's pretty close to 50-50, but that is by far, by several orders of magnitude, the highest approval rating that Trump has ever had throughout his entire first term his 4 years out in the wilderness, and then campaigning, and then up until today. And so what do those two things together tell you? That if Trump is acting the most libertarian or the most liberty-oriented he has ever acted, comparing his first term and so far in his second term to now, and according to the American people, left, right, and center, they think to the tune of 70-30 that he is acting in that direction. And at that time is when the most American, the largest cross-section of the American electorate approves of his job. That tells you even more than the Theo Von tweet that we are winning the culture war, right? Trump isn't tiptoeing around the edges and trying to tinker with the tax code by like raising it or lowering it by 2.3%. He's completely sending in Elon and DOGE to completely wipe out entire government agencies, saying that he wants his political legacy to be one of peace, which stands anathema and 180 degrees from where the deep state and the military industrial complex has been for years and years and years. Whether you love him or hate him, nobody can say that Trump is just another ho-hum Republican or Democrat, just go along to get along, kind of tinker around the edges. But, the general direction of the state of more war, higher taxes, more regulation, less freedom, that general direction is not going in that direction anymore. It is decidedly taking, if not a 180 and going backwards, a hard left turn in terms of agencies being cut, budgets being cut, getting spending under control, all those kind of things. So just when Trump is acting the most in line with what libertarians and more limited government, freedom-oriented people have been asking for years and never getting, that's when the people like him the most. That tells you all you need to know. The popular opinion out there is with us. We just need to keep building on these examples. We need DOGE and Elon to keep showing people how wasteful and abusive the government is. We need agencies to keep getting shut down so that when they do and people look up and the sky hasn't fallen yet, they start to think, well, maybe we never needed that agency in the first place. As we keep building these examples, to David's point from earlier, it could wind up with egg in our face. And maybe these agencies were the greatest thing ever. And now, toasters are going to start blowing up in our faces tomorrow, because we don't have regulation X, Y, or Z. That could happen. I highly doubt it. But if we get these examples on paper and nothing happens, or better yet, good things start to happen, people have more money in their pockets, it's easier to start a business, they have a future that's actually worth looking forward to, you're going to see that opinion, that 53%, just start growing by leaps and bounds. And you're going to see it play out in future elections where the person who runs on the platform of, I'm going to get government out of your life even more than the last guy, is going to start winning. And then America will truly be great again.
And if you're one of those people that's terrified of DOGE coming in and eviscerating everything and getting rid of the FBI and yada, yada, yada. And I'm speaking to myself here a little bit too, so I'm going to quote Batman because I haven't quoted Batman in a long time. But when a forest becomes too overgrown, a purging fire is necessary. And again, I was having this conversation with one of my friends this week. He's like, you think it's a good thing if they just get rid of the FBI? I was like, yeah, to be honest with you. He's like, but what about all those people? It's like, they can reapply. Like, again, he's like, well, don't you think that the majority are like good workers? I was like, yeah, but like, it only takes one bad apple to spoil the bunch. And the last time we checked, I think there was 51 or 52 really bad apples there. And if something's become so, the FBI is a smaller picture of what I envision of the government. When it becomes so corrupt, when it becomes so entangled, when it just becomes this, what do you call it? The Gordian knot? The Gordian knot, when it's just so fucking there. There's no way you're going to be able to figure it. What did Alexander do? He just cut it. Like, fuck it. Just get rid of the knot. Kill the knot. And then we have the concepts of the knot still there. It's not like we're getting rid of everything. Then we're going to pull all the pieces together that worked because we could see that it worked, and then create a new institution that's not corrupted, that's brand new, and that we will hopefully learn from the mistakes of the past to put some things in place to make sure it's not as easily corrupted this time. So again, change is always painful and it's always scary, but usually leads to much better outcomes down the road as long as you take your medicine with it. If you learn your lessons along the road of pain, then hopefully that's where I'm at right now, is that maybe this is the purging fire, and that after this, we can arise from the ashes like a glorious phoenix. Maybe we should change our national bird to a phoenix instead of a bald eagle. I don't know. I just, getting patriotic over here, getting all whimsical and shit. I'll pass it over to you for your final words, Bubba.
Well, listen, just in case you thought that David and I just sit here all day agreeing with each other, that last part, I guess, is where I'll say that we depart a little bit, because I would like to see it all abolished and have it be replaced by nothing. Because
it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
My old adage, well, not my old adage, so, many have come up with it before, but what do you replace cancer with when you cut it out? Right?
Yeah. So L cancer.
Yeah. Other types of cancer.
The other one.
So, I wouldn't necessarily build it back, but listen, okay? We're not purple-haired leftists that can't have differences of opinion, okay? We can just...
That's not true. I fucking hate you and I quit podcasting. All right, so, I rehire myself. Before I quit, I rehire myself.
whether the FBI is, dare I say, built back better, as David would like.
Hey, I didn't say that. I didn't say the FBI. Maybe we should be the fucking BFI.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. The point is, it's not built back in the way that it currently functions.
Yes.
So I would hesitate to put words in David's mouth. But to the extent that there are those out there like David who are wrong, but want or think that an agency like the FBI should exist.
All right.
Fair enough. We can hash that out when the time comes. But yes, I think until we get to the hashing, what we can agree on
I'll
the
wait
front
for you on
end,
the hash marks, motherfucker.
what we can agree on the front end is its current operation is absolutely irredeemable, and so it needs to be burnt to the ground, and then we'll cross the rest of the bridges as we come to them. So, listen, like I said, whether you're been in the liberty movement for 5 minutes, whether you don't even know what that is, or whether you've been in it for decades with us, you deserve a round of applause. If you've been pushing in the direction, no matter how slight, of, I think the government's too big, I think it's too unaccountable, I think it's, you don't even have to get into conspiracy stuff. Just think that, listen, at a bare minimum, we, the people who are supposed to be running this show, deserve the transparency to see what exactly is going on. Even if that is your, I think, rather mundane and objectionable, worldview to take. I don't know how anybody could disagree with that. You deserve a round of applause, right? If you're not everything's been great and let's keep the status quo as it is up to this point. Basically, anybody outside of that circle, you deserve a round of applause. We're winning the culture war, and let's keep the momentum going.
Bring back those Papa Ron memes too. The explain this shit meme. Bring that back. Come on now. That is so necessary in Doge. I'm surprised nobody's done it yet. So if you're
that's
listening
actually a
to
good
this,
point. We should do that.
Fuck. All right, we're gonna start doing this, and you can join the initiative. Get in the comments. But anyway, all that being said, I expect to see fucking boodles of noodles of goddamn Ron Paul out there.
You betcha.
Get to it. So anyway, Dane Yull. Where can they find episode 232 of Weapons of Meme Destruction podcast?
You can find this episode at wmdpodcast.com/232. They can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. They can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and X. While you're over at the website, wmdpodcast.com, check out all the ways to support us. There's a Support Our Work tab that you can find all the ways to support us financially. But other than that, you can also join the email list, stay in contact with the show. You can like, subscribe, share, comment, hit the bell for notifications, favorite on every single platform that you find us. So please continue to do that. If you've already been doing it, thank you for your service. Continue to do that so you keep bumping us out to the algorithm so we get out to more people and help grow the sane space with every episode. And apart from all that, just do all the free stuff, tell your friends and family about us, invite people over to your house and have a listen to the WMD boys on, on audio only,
slip
or
something
throw
in their
us
drink.
up on the
tie them to a bedpost. I don't know what you got to do, but you got to get us in their eyes.
Throw us up on the TV on YouTube and, just have a WMD watch party, whatever it takes.
We enter
Grow
through your
the sane
eyes.
Space. It's good for all of us.
And ears.
And we'll see you on 233.
Okay. Sorry, chattered through that. I get carried away. It's been a long week. Well, until next week, God only knows if we'll even, Dan, you might get your wish. By next week, we might not even have a government anymore. I said it this last week. If
we'll be out of topics.
we won't even have a job. We won't even have a podcast at the end of 4 years, let alone fucking, we won't have anything to bitch about. It's all going to be gone. Yeah. Well,
we'll just have to transition to, I don't know, being funny or something.
Yeah. Or talk about fucking.
I can carry you on that. Don't worry.
Thanks, buddy. Well, we all know why I'm here, and it ain't for my fucking mentals. Anyway, until next week, guys, stay safe, but more importantly, stay free.